Hello, my name is Francisco Maroto Molina. I am an assistant professor at the Department of Animal Production of the University of Córdoba in Spain, and I'm part of the team teaching lessons for the Intellectual Output 2 called ICT-based e-learning module of Sheep Herd Bridge Erasmus Plus project. Today, I am in charge of lesson 2.4, which is part of Unit 2 on sheep and goat production systems. This lesson is entitled New Technologies for Sheep Herds, and I will talk about what today is known as precision livestock farming. Before talking about technology, it is important to picture the world we live in and the future we expect, because technology aims to solve some of the present and future challenges of humanity. Today, we are over 7 billion people living on Earth, but according to FAO, by 2050 we expect an increase in human population of 35%, up to 10 billion people. We also expect an increase in middle class, especially in Asia and Latin America, where middle class is still scarce. This additional population will demand more food, 70% more, and new middle class will demand more high-quality protein and fat, which comes mainly from animal products like eggs, meat, or milk. To produce more food, we will need land and water, but we already use most of Earth's resources. 70% of water is now used by agriculture, as well as 37% of land. Considering that we need to use water for other purposes beyond agriculture, and that a lot of land is not suitable for agriculture, we cannot expect to have additional water and land to produce the additional food we will need in the future. In addition, the general context is not easy, as while producing more food, we will need to consider environmental degradation and climate change, which made things more difficult. In the last years, as you know, we even had a world pandemic, which also affected food production. In the past, we already needed to produce more food, and we addressed that changing production systems. Regarding animal production, we went from family farming to a much more intensified animal production. This came with selected breeds, new and bigger facilities, specialization, improved animal health, enhanced animal nutrition, etc. Although intensification greatly increased food production and availability, helping to fight hunger and malnutrition, we know today that it also came with a high cost in terms of environmental degradation, animal welfare, or systems resiliency. We see today that our production systems are vulnerable to climate, pest, or social conflicts. We cannot expect another green revolution consisting of increasing production by adding more and more agricultural inputs. The approach for the future is to produce more with less, which will require to increase production efficiency. In animal production, we will have less farms and farmers to produce more food, which means bigger farms and consequently less time of the farmer per animal. Farmers can no longer dedicate their time to observe individual animals looking for health or reproductive issues, like in the picture, where the farmer is observing cows in order to detect heat signs. It is not possible in big farms, so we will need technology to support the farmer in the task of audiovisual inspection of their animals. This situation has derived in the concept of precision livestock farming, which acronym is PLF in English. There are many definitions of PLF in scientific documents, but the more accepted one is the definition of Professor Bermans from the University of Leuven in Belgium. He is considered the father of PLF, which he defined as the management of livestock farming by continuous, automated, and real-time monitoring or controlling of health, welfare, and reproduction of livestock. Continuous, automated, and real-time are the key terms of this definition, as PLF solutions aims to monitor animals during long periods with no human supervision, not at punctual moments of the production cycle. Besides, real-time data are needed to make decisions that actually impact production systems, enhancing their efficiency, which is the main goal of most PLF applications. At this point, it is important to highlight that technology is not something new in animal production. We have had a lot of technologies for decades now, especially in intensive production systems. However, most of these technologies are aimed at the automatization of farmer tasks, for example, feed distribution or milking, as it is the case in the photos of this slide, while precision livestock technologies are aimed at animal monitoring to improve decision making. Some of these technologies are really advanced, such as milking robots. Robotization is still not available in many other sectors, but milking robots ha have existed since the 80s. Precision livestock farming consists of the application of technology to animal production, but as stated, with a different approach, focused in the monitorization of animals, ideally individual animals. Then, milking robots can also be seen as PLF tools if they record individual production or animal behavior. Today, there are many PLF sensors in the market. As shown in this slide, we can find cameras to automatically weigh pigs, accelerometers to be placed on cow legs or ears to characterize their behavior, camera-based systems to study bird location in the barn in order to detect facility problems, portable spectral sensors to monitor feed quality, etc. However, most of these systems has been designed for dairy cows, pigs, or poultry, namely industrial production systems. There are few PLF systems for small ruminants, sheep, and goats, and extensive production systems. What we really have are technologies designed for cattle that could be adapted to small ruminant production. In most cases, technologies for meat, sheep, and goats come from beef cattle production, and technologies for dairy sheep and goats were originally designed for dairy cows. Probably dairy sheep concentrates most of PLF developments among small ruminant systems. There are people working on the development of online milk analysis systems to be installed in the milking parlor. We already have these systems for dairy cows. Milk analysis is also performed at line using near or mid-infrared technologies like milk scan in order to control product quality or even to use this information in genetic studies. Other recent developments are sensor boluses for dairy sheep with measured temperature as a health indicator, or the use of thermal imaging to monitor animal health and welfare. However, there are no milking robots for sheep, although they have been in the market for many years in the case of dairy cows. Many reasons for that, including the morphology of sheep udder and the lack of standardization of small ruminant production systems. We will talk now about those technologies that are more specific of small ruminants, even when they are not in the market by the moment. The first one is radio frequency identification. Electronic identification has been mandatory for small ruminants in Europe since 2010. So, beyond visual ID tags, you need to use electronic tags, boluses, or subcutaneous chips. Boluses are the standard solution today, as tags are easy to lose due to the characteristics of the ears of most sheep and goat breeds, and subcutaneous systems are mobile and difficult to recover at the slaughterhouse. Radiofrequency identification is cheap nowadays, with an approximate cost of €1 per animal. Although it is not a PLF technology per se, as it does not record any data about animal behavior or performance, mandatory electronic identification poses a huge opportunity for small ruminants, as it makes animals readable by any PLF system. As PLF aims to gather data on individual animals, the first step is the automatic identification of each animal, and we already have this in small ruminants in Europe. Nevertheless, boluses are probably not the best option for PLF, as they require big antennas and close contact. A good example of the use of radiofrequency identification in a PLF solution is the tool called Pedigree Matchmaker, which has been developed by Australian sheep herds. This is a very simple tool based on the natural instinct of lambs of following their mothers. When you have a very large flock, it can be difficult to know who the mother of each lamb is. Also, recording this information can be very time consuming. Then you can use the pedigree matchmaker, which is a simple door with a radio frequency antenna registering which animals cross the door and, more importantly, in which order. As lambs will normally follow their mothers, you can automatically register the identification of ewe lamb pairs, and this information may be quite important for decision making, for example, for the genetic progress of your herd. Of course, animals crossing the pedigree matchmaker a single time is not sufficient, but after a few times, the probability of a lamb repeatedly crossing after a ewe who is not its mother is very low. This solution is easy to build and customize. You can place it at pen entrance, between grazing plots, or in the water trough. The same principle is used in the case of proximity loggers. In this slide, we can see a solution based on Bluetooth technology on the left side. In this case, the collar of the mother is able to read the collar of the lamb, so we expect that the maximum number of reds among all lambs in the flock will correspond to the lamb of the ewe carrying the collar. In the picture of the right side, the system works differently. A cheese collar can read other collars and at the same time is readable by any other collar. This technology is very useful to monitor affiliative and agonistic behaviors, which can influence animal welfare within a flock. Another technology based on the monitoring of contacts among animals is the alpha detector, which is a French PLF solution aimed at detecting mounting as an indicator of sheep heat and future parturitions. In this case, the radiofrequency device is placed on sheep tails using glue. Rams will wear a harness containing the antenna. When the ram mounts the sheep, a pressure sensor activates the antenna, recording the identification of the animal under the ram. Another useful tool for sheep and goat farmers is the autodrafter. This PLF solution is able to automatically classify animals in a herd based on a certain criterion. Animals classified in the same group will be redirected to a certain pen using automatic doors. Normally, autodrafters can be installed with 2 or 3 different exits. Criteria to classify animals can be identification, or if the autodrafter includes a scale, you can redirect animals to certain pens based on their weight. This can be useful, for example, to separate adults and lambs, which obviously has a very different weight. Beyond autodrafters, automatic weighing systems have been developed to be installed between grazing paddocks or in lamb pens. The second system includes a camera to automatically detect if there is one or more lambs on the scale. This information is used to increase data quality. Weighing sheep while walking can be problematic due to the characteristic following behavior of this species. It is difficult to make sheep to walk on the scale one by one, allowing the gathering of correct weight data. To solve that, French researchers have developed the sorting alley you can see in the bottom left corner of this slide. The system is very clever, and when a sheep enters the alley, it closes the access to the following one until the first one has crossed the system. Weight is a very interesting information as it allows making important decisions in animal production. This is why there are many people developing PLF systems aimed at gathering weight data. A different approach is using image analysis to know animal weight. This is less invasive than scales, but much more difficult in terms of development. French researchers have tried to use a 3D scan of sheep to infer weight, but this is not a successful story, as animals need to be trained to be still within the system, and wool volume can highly affect the precision of this system. On the right side, you can see the system developed by a Spanish company to weigh lambs. It is simply a camera placed on a stick capturing from above videos of animals. I do not have information about the precision of this system, but it will probably serve to scan the average weight of a group of animals. Gathering precise individual data is probably much more difficult. For the future, there are a lot of people working on new developments. In this slide, there is an example of a possible PLF system to detect predator attacks, which is a major problem for sheep herds in many parts of the world. The system consists of a collar with the ability to measure animal temperature and heart rate. It is expected that both parameters will increase in the presence of a predator. So by recording this data, we will be able to detect attacks. However, it is not sufficient, since if we detect the presence of a wolf, but we are at home in that moment, we will not be able to avoid the attack. We need to connect sensors to actuators. For example, when the system detects the presence of a wolf, it could activate some speakers placed in the plot to emit unpleasant sound for the wolf in order to make it run away. This system is still not developed, but we can think that similar systems will be available in the future. The most important aspect is that these future tools must be oriented to solve real-world problems. As you have seen, PLF has a lot of potential to gather data to improve decision-making. However, in some cases, what is important today is that farmers get used to make decisions based on data, not only on tradition, and it is not mandatory that those data were gathered by sensors. Some sheep herds make notes about what is happening on their farms. Some of them use these notes to make decisions, for example, to decide which animals will be the basis for the new generations based on the productive records of their parents. This type of farmers is ready to embrace PLF, as it will facilitate their lives by automatizing data collection. Sheepherds that do not gather any type of data, or gathering them, they do not use data for decision making, need to break database decision making divide before adopting PLF in order to be efficient. Of course, if data are registered in a digital format, even when they do not come from PLF sensors, it is much better. This is what is happening with dairy goat producers in Spain. They have this app called Scardillo, which allows them to record data on production and morphology of individual animals. The app makes then some automatic calculations that help farmers to decide which are their best animals in order to improve the genetic quality of their herds. Finally, since PLF gathers the data on different aspects of production systems, we can use this data not only to monitor animal performance, but also to communicate some of the characteristics of our production systems to the final consumer as a way to increase their awareness and keenness to pay an extra price for premium products. This is an example of a sheep herd who makes transhumance in southern Spain. As transhumance is a traditional practice with high environmental values, there are some consumers that will prefer to eat meat coming from this environmentally friendly system instead of more intensive systems. Some of these consumers are even willing to pay more for these productions. Therefore, this farmer has used GPS collars fit to some sheep of his herd in order to record data on his transhumance paths in a totally objective way. These data are provided to consumers through the farmer web page, so they can be sure that this sheep herd has actually made transhumance a certain day in a certain time. Thank you for your attention to this lesson. For comments and doubts, you can find me in the email address indicated in this slide. Thank you.